if you are watching the replay, you can still feel free to make comments, ask questions, and we will try to answer those on future episodes. So we hope this is helpful. If it is, feel free to share it. It will be available on for the replay on the Pathways to Healing Counseling Facebook page. So if you want to go back there and share it, please feel free to do so. We welcome your questions today. So don't be shy. Your question probably is someone else's question. So feel free to say hi in the comments. Let us know you're here. And we're grateful that you took the time to join us today. I am Kristen Boice. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and the owner of Pathways to Healing Counseling. And I am joined by my wonderful colleague and friend, Rachel Hall, who is a licensed clinical mental health counselor. Not clinical, mental health counselor.
Clinical nothing, just mental health counselor.
And so I'm grateful, Rachel, for you to be with us today as we talk about healing and navigating loneliness in these difficult times. So that is going to be our focus today. But if you have other questions, feel free to let us know. That's what we're here for. We want to be of service. And so let's jump into how do you define loneliness?
Well, that's a tough question. I wasn't expecting that one. I would also like to say we didn't plan the matching shirts.
We didn't.
I feel like we should just be transparent about that. How do I define loneliness? Let me sit with that for a second. I think there's the general concept of physical loneliness, that when we are physically alone, live alone or work alone or function mostly alone, obviously that leads to feeling isolated and lonely. I think also there's an element of physical loneliness even when you're not physically alone. Where I might live with somebody, but be disconnected from that person and not be, and still feel really lonely. So I think that's another way. And I think there's emotional loneliness. And I'll just be completely honest, I've never really thought through that. So this is just kind of coming from the heart. This is a gut response, but I think emotional loneliness is something that most of us feel where we really just feel very isolated and disconnected, removed or sort of outside looking in emotionally to other people's relationships, other people's experiences, just other people in general. So that's not a really very clear definition of loneliness, but as I talk, I think that's what it really is about, is being connected or disconnected in multiple ways.
Yeah, I like that. I like how you framed it kind of in those two pieces. I think about the Broadway show Dear Evan Hansen, and there's a song. There's this, I have not seen the show, but really want to see it. There's a song in there, it's Waving Through the Window. And it reminds me, I had a friend tell me the other day, they didn't get invited to a social distancing event. And they described it as they were waving through the window. So they didn't feel seen. They didn't feel important. They didn't feel like they mattered. And I was like, that's so true. And I thought of that song as you were sharing. That idea of I'm waving through the window, but nobody sees me. Nobody cares about me.
And that window in the Dear Evan Hansen example is protective of Evan Hansen too, right? Like, I'm not ready to let you in. I'm not ready to let you see me. I'm not ready. It's scary to be seen and known. It's what I want at my core so desperately, because we are designed with that need. We come out of the womb needing to be seen and known and acknowledged and to have belonging and connection. It is hardwired into our system. And, there's this element here. I love that you brought up Dear Evan Hansen just because it's Dear Evan Hansen. But the part of that song that really gets me and makes me kind of want to tear up is that Evan Hansen is so scared to put himself out there to find connection or belonging because it's such a risky prospect. And that is so true for all of us.
Yeah, the fear of rejection. And what if they don't like me? And what if I'm not, they don't like who I am? And that fear of abandonment, they might accept me now, but then what if they don't really like the real me later? And we get super afraid of that pain associated with that. We all can go to our inner child and go, oh, we have some memories of where we might not have felt, we might have felt on the outside, and that fear of putting ourselves out there is so visceral.
Absolutely. And I think that the fear of rejection and abandonment is truly one of the deepest fears that every human on the planet has. They can say they don't, but it's probably because they're covered up and in a defense system. But when we strip those defenses away and get really real about our core emotions, and the stories that we're writing in our heads and the fears that we have, I think all of us, and I've seen this in my clients, I've seen this in my own life, I've seen this with friends and family, we learn very early that what it feels like to be rejected, what it feels like to not fit in, to not belong somewhere, right? Sometimes it's our family system, sometimes it's at school, sometimes it's at churches, sometimes it's in club, anywhere. We learn that sting so early on, and then the fight, flight, or freeze system says no, thank you, hard pass, let's not do that again, right? And then we build a little piece of our armor that says it's just too painful to be rejected or left behind and not have belonging, and so I just won't risk it.
Yeah, because it feels safer then, because a lot of people would describe it as walls. Mm-hmm. Like that feels, because we build these protective parts that say, and they often are adaptive. They're often can keep us safe, and we survive very hard things in our lives, a lot of traumas, because we have this protector part that comes out and says, oh, we don't even know we have a protector part, but this is how we survive it. And so it becomes then in relationships, it can actually be the barrier then to feeling connected, because that protective part, that wall we build has gotten so big that we don't want to let anybody in, because we remember, the nervous system remembers what that felt like and how painful that was. Right. Yeah. So it's scary to give what we think is giving it up. We still don't give it up, but it's scary to think, oh, I kind of want to feel safe here. Right. I don't put myself out there.
Safety is the driving force, just sort of from a human experience, right? Because, if you think way back to our caveman ancestors, all they cared about was survival, because it was a day-to-day, sometimes hour by hour thing. And where, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is one of my favorite therapeutic tools, I can't talk, safety comes right after my physiological needs. If I don't feel safe, I don't get to move up that triangle of development and enrichment and maturity, and I just don't get to move when I don't feel safe. And so if I don't know how to make myself safe, in most situations, I'm never going to move up that triangle to love and belonging and self-actualization and these really beautiful, thriving points in life. We just end up surviving.
And I think right now, given the COVID situation, and loneliness is such a pervasive kind of feeling that people are having in the midst of it. And we have what's called kind of trauma shock. Like we're all in shock. We're all experiencing it differently. But our systems kind of feel like we got to go back into a survival state. Not everybody, but many of us feel like, okay, we've got to go back into this survival state. I mean, we look at the grocery store and there's no bread on the shelves. So what does our nervous system do? Our nervous system goes, oh, I better be on high alert here.
I need bread too.
I need to survive. So I need to get the bread. But the pictures of the no bread, the pictures of the empty shelves triggers this kind of response in us that says, oh, I've got to eat. I've got to survive. So it's a real response that our nervous system has. That's why I'm like, don't be having the TV on and the news on when you have children. They can't digest They can't make sense of everything that's going on.
Mm-hmm.
And loneliness is like it comes and goes. And sometimes we feel we're stuck in the loneliness, like we're at the top and it doesn't feel like we have any hope of it getting better. What do you tell us a little bit about how people can begin to kind of metabolize and move through that state of loneliness?
I think once they slow down their nervous system, and you and I talk everywhere we go about the absolute critical importance of deep breathing. And so I'm going to say it again. It was the tool we came out with. We popped into the world with the tool of deep breathing, where, gosh, this is what's going to eventually calm and regulate my nervous system. And so once I'm doing that regularly, not just in the moment of fight, flight, or freeze, but just, yoga is fantastic. I know I don't know if you're certified but you're trained in yoga. Yoga is fantastic. Mindfulness strategies are fantastic. I'm doing a weekly Zoom call actually with some law enforcement and people in the law enforcement world where they're doing mindfulness strategies within law enforcement. And it's so valuable. It's just so important to take that 15 minutes and just sit and do your breathing and just really connect with your body, because then you go, oh, this is loneliness. This is loneliness that I'm feeling. I might have been really irritable and snippy. I might have been, crying all the time, and I might categorize that as depressed. I mean, this is loneliness. Like when I really connect with my body and where that feeling really is in my core, I'm so lonely, and then once we connect to what's really going on, and loneliness is probably going to go with fear and sadness. Very rarely do we just get one core emotion at a time. It might be a little easier if we did, but we get this beef stew, right, of all these emotions sometimes, and we just take each one and we honor each one. We gain the information from each one, and we just sit with that and acknowledge it and tell ourselves it's okay to feel lonely. It makes sense why I feel lonely. Again, physically lonely. Sure. If I'm living alone and I have been, having my groceries delivered and, I maybe don't have a lot of family to call or to FaceTime with, or maybe I don't have a lot of friends, maybe I really am physically lonely. Maybe there aren't people that I can readily assess. And so it makes sense why that's going to be hard when our bodies are designed for belonging and connection, but we don't have it readily available. It's going to be hard. And we just really have to be tender with ourselves and say, well, of course I feel lonely. Of course I'm feeling this. Not, you ding dong, why are you feeling this? Come on, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Let's get over this. That doesn't help anybody. Doesn't help anybody. But again, that emotional loneliness, I think, is so critical to pay attention to, because that's where, maybe people won't think of us as lonely because I have a husband or a wife, or I have a boyfriend or girlfriend, or I have kids, or I'm going out to some social functions. I'm doing, I'm physically with some people, but emotionally I feel very lonely. And I think that can be overlooked based on assumptions that other people, kind of make, that, oh, they've got somebody looking after them, or they've got somebody. Not necessarily, right? And if we can tune in to what's really going on with a person physically or emotionally lonely, I think we can do a world of good for that person just by saying, hey, I see you. I know it's hard. Gosh, just know you're not alone. I wrote a Facebook post. I've been kind of journaling throughout, just for my own well-being, really, but I've been sharing that in case it helps someone else. And my post last week sometime was just this overwhelming feeling of, I feel so alone. I feel so unseen. And I have an amazing husband and I have great kids and we have loved being together. And yet emotionally in that moment, I was done. I was done and I needed something more, and sharing that. And then I get these responses that say, me too, sister. And I'm suddenly less alone, right? I took the risk to put myself out there emotionally and to say, listen, it's not all sunshine and roses up in here. Things don't always feel beautiful, right? I don't function from joy and excitement all the time. because I'm human and because we're all human, and taking that risk and saying, listen, it stinks over here sometimes too, and it's really hard, and I just would love to be real about that. That gives people the opportunity to connect with us. And this new word, it's not, I mean, it's not new in my head with my own work. There's this beautiful thing that happens when we nurture ourselves. We become connectable. We become able to be connected with in a way that maybe when we're waiting for someone else to meet our emotional needs, we're not connectable. We're angry and we're resentful, and maybe we're a little bitter, and maybe we're critical and judgmental, and we're looking for everything that the person's doing wrong because they're supposed to meet my needs. When we can breathe and just go, what if I let them live their life and I take care of myself? And it's like those walls fall down, at least bit by bit. They start to, right? It's not as easy as I'm making it, but they start to fall down, and we get, I don't know, this visual that just came up is we kind of get these cracks where the sunshine can come through, and we really do. We just feel less emotionally alone.
Yeah. I wrote down what I think sometimes is underneath loneliness in my little sticky note.
Uh-huh.
I have all these
What's
sticky notes. So here's what it says. It's a longing feeling, like for connection, belonging, love, purpose, importance. I mean, I made a whole list. Worth and value, validation, acknowledgement, recognition. This is really underneath. It's like a longing. And I think when we can go, oh, there's the longing feeling, there's me longing that, and then we can step in and kind of be that person for ourselves, like you were describing, the nurture, or the one that does acknowledge, the one that does have compassion. Is super hard to do, because if it wasn't done to us, and that wasn't, we have no starting point. It's like I'm taking a class and it's ground zero. And I might only digest this, and my other part of my brain might be like, that's stupid. That's silly. That won't work. That won't work for me. And so it might be hard to take it all in, and our nervous system might be feeling like, oh, that's a lot. I don't know if I can do that nurturing thing. I don't even know how to do it. When you can open up just a little bit, when we can take that wall down just a hair, tip our toe in the water, test it out, try it out, breathe through that discomfort, our nervous system can go, okay, that wasn't so bad. And that's what it's like doing vulnerability. Okay, I describe it like I'm going to tip my toe in the water. I'm going to see how I breathe through the discomfort of it, because it's scary, because we want to look like we have it all together, or whatever the belief is. And then I can go, okay. And there is such a thing, Brene Brown talks about it as a vulnerability hangover. It's where we go, oh, I really shouldn't have shared that, or I shouldn't have said that. And now they're going to think I'm some wacko, or they're going to think I'm crazy, or they're going to think I'm a mess. And they're going to think I'm a hot mess. Yep. Not doing that again. They didn't even say any of that. I have now, that is the story I've got going, because that was a big move.
It was a big move that makes us feel out of control. And that survival state says you have to control, you have to control, you have to control. What it forgets, because it's not tapped into the logic part of the brain, is there's very little we control. There really is. You know, in life, there's very little we have control over. We have some power, you know, but we don't really have control over too much. But that survival brain says, no, don't let go of control. Don't let go of control, right? Manage what they see, manage the story, you know, and if you believe wholeheartedly that you know for sure how they reacted to you in that moment, there's a sense of control. And going back to what you said about, you know, where's the starting point for people who don't know where to start with nurturing themselves? After the breath, I think if people could just say, you know what if I say just this once, it's okay for me to feel what I'm feeling. Just this once. Let me just try that, right? And then I call myself by name and I say, Rachel, it's okay to feel sad. Rachel, it's okay to feel afraid. Like, what if I just shift that little bit of self-talk And I think if we pay attention to what my body does in response to that, we're going to want more. I hear this with clients a lot who, God love them, they're like, now it makes sense. I did it once and now I believe you. I'm like, whatever it takes. But once you do it and you experience a little bit of what it's like, you want more. And then you'll do it the next time. And you don't have to do it perfectly every time. Just do it when you can, and it will shift. And your body goes, okay, feels a little safer now. Not because my circumstances changed, but because I changed my response to the circumstances.
And that's the key, because what that allows, and I like you breaking it down into those steps because it makes it more manageable. It's like 2 steps. This is what we're working on. 1 is the breathing, and 2 is saying, it's okay for me to have my feeling. Let me just try that on right now. Mm-hmm. And what I think happens when we do that over time is we notice that we're no longer looking for somebody else to do it for us. And there's the power. We're no longer looking for someone else to do it for us. That's empowerment. We can do it for ourselves. We can heal that. And the body then can release those emotions, and it can move up and out of us rather than staying stuck and buried inside of us.
Right.
And that
they don't want to linger.
No. And that is actually what keeps us stuck, is not connecting to the emotion and moving it through. What keeps us stuck is just going, well, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm all right. I don't need to do it. And I'm like, take a deep breath. Allow yourself to have your process. Mm-hmm. We compare our process to someone else's process, so it looks totally different. So that is the key, because we're moving that. What you're doing, those first 2 steps, is you're moving that up and out. Then you can come back to center. It's like riding that wave. Right. Then I can come back down to a more calm state. If I don't do that, I'm going to stay at the heightened state, the hypervigilant state, kind of fight, flight, or freeze.
And as I see clients do that in session, the running theme that I hear is, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted after these. And I go, yeah, because you came in and you laid down a little bit of the armor. And the body goes, oh my gosh, I didn't even know how much I was carrying, right? I didn't know until I laid it down. And of course I'm tired. Yeah. And I just really try to normalize that, because some people have been carrying that armor for 70, 80 years. Of course you're physically tired when you lay it down, you know? Here I am carrying that and I'm tense and my muscles are just kind of always in this state of stress. And once I let go of that, it goes, oh, I go take a nap. You might need a nap, you know? So I just think there's just so much to be said for really just going, let me just try 1 or 2 little steps here. Let me just try that, because the body is going to send these warning signs that say, no, don't treat yourself nicely. That never works out very well. You know, don't say nice things to yourself because you don't really believe them. Don't go there, right? Because, you know, it's not true, because remember what mom used to say about you, or remember what, you know, your 16-year-old boyfriend said when he broke up with you, or whatever that might be. Remember that. So don't go there. That's where we take that breath that just gives us the opportunity to mix the logic in with the emotion. And we just are functioning from more brain matter, you know, like it's just physiologically how it works.
Yeah. And there's power. That's where the power lies. What came up for me as you were sharing, I was thinking of the waving through the window metaphor. Mm-hmm. And I thought, okay, this first step is you're at the window, you see what you long for. You long to be seen, but you want to self-protect, you know, kind of want to keep the window closed, because if I just hide, I don't put myself out there, then I don't have to feel rejected and disappointed and abandoned and go through that. And my encouragement is to take a deep breath. Let's open the window. Let's start by cracking the window open and take a breath and breathe and center and notice. So you don't have to, you know, as we use that metaphor, because 99% of what we're doing is we're learning to do it ourselves and really nurture ourselves through it. So we get the courage.
Right.
to put the armor down. We get the courage to, because we want belonging and connection. We're not going to find it outside of ourselves. It's just not going to be there. It's within. When I abandon myself and I be someone I'm not, and I'm like, hey, out the window, I'm making this up. But let's say I'm like, hey, and that's not me. Now I'm going to try to hustle to be someone I'm not to get the belonging. And now I'll never feel like I belong because I'm not being my real self.
Right. When we do fit in,
they want me to be.
Right. When we do fit in based on the projected image, we wonder why it still isn't fulfilling. It's because it's not really what you are designed to need. I mean, it's icing on the cake sometimes when, when we are in a relationship, we have friends, we have family members who are safe, who can connect with us. I mean, that feels fantastic. And I wish that for everyone on the planet, just even one person, that is safe, that is able to connect with me after I connect with myself and become more connectable. I wish that for everybody. Unfortunately, the risk and the reality is not everybody gets that, and not everybody gets that easily. And so, it's one of those things where we have to keep nurturing ourselves. I'm going to put myself out there and try to connect with this person, and I might get rejected. They might not like me. There are lots of people who don't like me. And let me tell you, it turns me up inside, and I have to go, Rachel, but you are who you are, right? Like you're okay. You're okay even when that guy doesn't believe you, or that guy doesn't like you, or that person doesn't ask you to this, whatever it might be. Okay, that hurts. That stings, right? I put myself out there. I came out authentically. And when we're doing authenticity, it feels even scarier because I can blame my projected image at times if that's what I'm doing. But when I let that down and I really am just offering the world Rachel as she is, all of her flaws and everything that she comes with, it feels even riskier, right? And yet people are drawn to authenticity. People want that. And the connections you end up getting when that's how you're showing up, because you've taken care of yourself, you've nurtured yourself, and you put authentic self out there, the connections that you do receive from people who have done the same thing and connect back with you, it's the most beautiful, transformative sort of relationships I think that we can have. And I just think, sometimes I feel like I paint this, all sunshine and roses picture of, hey, be authentic, and people are going to line up at your door to be your friend. It's not like that. It's not like that. It still is hard. And yet we know what to do with that hard then. When we're not authentic, when we're not nurturing ourselves, when we're just showing up with the image, we don't know what to do with the hard. It's hard over there too, right? Like life is hard, whether you show up real and authentic or you show up the way everybody wants you to show up. It's hard. Real and authentic gives you space to go, but I know what to do with that hard, and I can move myself through that. Back to kind of the loneliness piece. I don't have to be all alone in this hard, right? The other alone or the other hard feels super lonely, right? Like you said, I'm not even connecting to myself in that kind of space. But after I've nurtured myself and I'm connecting from that place, I can do that hard, right? I'm equipped now. I'm in a space where I can do that. And so, pain comes in life regardless of how we're showing up. But man, when we can show up to do hard things authentically and vulnerably and connectably, I don't think that's a word, but it is now. I declare it. But when we can show up
words all the time, yeah.
when we can show up from that space, it's pain with purpose. There is beauty and there's purpose that comes from it.
For sure. I was talking to someone today about their family kind of not understanding them and what they feel. And she was like, but there are people dying. And I'm like, yeah. And it doesn't discount your process. What we do is we discount our own process. We discount our own feelings. And that's another minimization, rationalization, because no one tended to, as kids, it's like, shake it off, you're fine, or I'll give you something to cry about, or we're conditioned, or, society as a whole, be strong. like you said, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. And here we are in COVID, kind of this, and there are positives too. It's not all, we can talk about those. And yet there is this piece that needs to be addressed, which is there are people that are very lonely right now. They're waving through the window metaphorically. There are some people, nursing homes, they are literally waving through the window. And so to me, there's like, I can feel the wave of emotion come, even just noticing those feelings. I can feel it right now, the sadness. So underneath, we have to allow that wave to come. Even when I pulled up that visual, and people that are home alone and going, well, I'm waving through the window and nobody sees me. And yet I feel safe in my home. And yet I feel safer in my home. So it's like this dual kind of different parts within us. That one part knows, okay, this is safe. The other part says, but I'm screaming inside to somebody to see me and acknowledge me. And I'm encouraging people to reach out to either some grief groups, like grief.com has, with David Kessler, he has a group on Facebook. If you go to the grief.com, it's on there. I don't remember the name of it. To get some community, to get other people going, me too, like you shared. And not everybody's going to feel the same way. And you just going, it's okay to have my process, can help with that lonely feeling. Because if you're not, I wrote down kind of some steps, and I think I had this on another Post-it at some point, but you should see my office.
You and your Post-its.
Now I have a whiteboard, so watch out.
Oh, nice.
So here's what this says, awareness. Like you said, we have to kind of be aware that we feel lonely, or what is that emotion we feel. Even if I'm not aware, I might be aware that I'm dysregulated. Okay. I might feel activated kind of in my body. I might feel like I want to say something, or I might feel like I want to hide and retreat. So just awareness of just even that. You might not know the emotion right away. Then through the breath, then we're going to connect to that feeling. We're going to breathe through it, and we're going to acknowledge it, like that self-compassion. So I kind of wrote out some steps for those folks that are visual that kind of wanted, it's hard
People
to do this
like
on the
steps.
screen.
So
People
great.
like steps, and it's
People
not like step
steps.
1, 2, 3. This isn't linear. You're going to jump around. But this kind of gives those people that kind of like, can you write this out? Can you give me something? I wrote this out, and I do this myself. Like it's a reminder for me. So I have Post-it notes as a reminder in my journal to connect to those emotions. That is helpful to ride the wave, to move them up and out. It's not to dwell in them. People get mixed up. They're like, I don't want to get stuck in that. I'm not going to dwell in those feelings. I'm like, well, then you won't transform the feeling if you not to dwell in it, to acknowledge it. Very different. Then
Very
we're
different.
moving it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I was thinking, kind of going back to what you said, the people who really truly are physically alone, what can they do? I know there are a lot of online support groups. The thing that came up to me actually, as I was kind of thinking through and saying a little prayer over this, I thought Penpals, we need to go back to Penpals, right? And maybe that looks differently than it did when I was in the 80s and we had, like Adopt a Soldier and like we had different ways to reach out via snail mail. I'm such like an acts of service, gifts kind of love language girl. I always think gifts is, I see my shame goes, that's the most selfish love language, Rachel. But hold on, let me practice. I'm going to breathe and say, but it is what it is.
And it's okay.
And it's okay to be loved on through gifts, Rachel. But when I get something in the mail and it's someone has taken 5 or 10 minutes to just take that extra step, write out a little note and pop it in the mail to me, like, oh my gosh, I feel so seen. And I just feel so filled up. And I was thinking about that, our shame stories want to go, well, we're a burden to other people. I'm not going to ask them to be my pen pal. I'm not going to, reach out and start a text conversation. I'm just such a burden. They don't want to hear from me. They have their own family. I don't want to interrupt. You've got to take that risk, right? There are lots of people in my life who I know write that shame story. And there's a part of me that keeps thinking, I would love to connect with you at that level, whether we're just friends or colleagues or family or whatever that might be. But I can't read your mind, right? Like I can't always know that you need a little something, that you need that, or that or that you're not getting that elsewhere. And so just ask, right? Just ask and say, hey, can we text tonight? Or can, and be prepared. I might say, gosh, I can't right now, but I want to connect later. Let's set a time, right? And so I think we miss out on opportunities and almost make ourselves lonelier because of those stories that we write, that, well, I don't want to reach out because they're busy, or, I'm such a burden, or whatever that might be. Give people the opportunity to love on you. You're going to find someone who wants to. And if you don't, keep trying. That's what I can, that's what I have to say.
And breathe through that
about
discomfort and that fear,
Exactly.
that voice, that shame voice that says, don't do it. Like you said, it's a burden, or they're going to think XYZ of you. Just take a deep breath, center. What are some, as we wrap up, you talked about mindfulness. Some people might not know what that is. Can you walk through maybe a couple of examples as takeaways to deal and cope with those feelings of loneliness?
Sure. And breathing exercises take they're packaged in multiple ways. I've heard you do the box breathing a lot, the 4-4-4. There's a 4-7-8 breathing. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 7 seconds, out for 8. There's and those don't work for me because they keep me in my head counting down. And so I just prefer personally, and it's a personal preference, I prefer just in through my nose as deeply as I can, slowly exhaling through my mouth until I really just kind of release it all. And then I do it again. I get a little more breath the next time. The gentleman on the law enforcement mindfulness call called it straw breathing. I'd not heard that before, but you kind of purse your lips like you're, I don't know, got your lips around a straw, I guess. He didn't explain it terribly well, but that's what I assumed it was about. And you just kind of, breathe that out almost like you're, kind of pursed lips. I've heard you blow the birthday candle out. Maybe I think I've heard you describe it that way. Those are mindfulness exercises. There are other mindfulness exercises. I love the Take 5 with clients. 5 things I can see. I'm really spending time getting back into the room, back at where I am, back in the car, back in the moment. 5 things I can see, 4 things I can touch, 3 things I can hear, 2 things I can smell, 1 thing I can taste. And I always recommend that people keep mints or little, those little Hershey's nuggets are fantastic for mindful tasting because they just kind of melt in your mouth and they don't go away, and then they fill your mouth with flavor. Just have something, water, just take a big swig of water and just feel that in your mouth and really connect to that. And you're getting back into the room. You can kind of tune in and out like a radio. So I'm changing the channel and I'm tuning to the outside of the room. And I'm tuning into what's inside the room, and then I'm tuning into what's inside me, and I'm just breathing through all of that, right? I'm just slowing down and getting present. So I think it's important, and the way I teach people is I've got to get back into the room, and so I have to reground where I am, and then I have to recenter back into my body with that deep breathing, where I really, and I can notice, I can move up from my toes, every body part, up to my head and back down, and just what do I notice? And every time I get to my neck and shoulders, boy, oh boy, I notice a lot there because it is tense. That is where I carry all of my stress. So I really missed my massage therapist during COVID-19. But when I get there, it makes me stop and breathe and go, what am I holding on to? Oh yeah, it's probably that really stressful conversation I had, with somebody 2 days ago. Okay, all right. And I might roll my shoulders. I might, do some stretching there, just kind of work that out so that with my exhale, it gets released from my body. So I know you can Google mindfulness strategies and find 14,700,000 more than what I even know. These are just the ones that are in my toolbox that I try to equip my clients with.
Those are very helpful. Thank you for sharing. I am grateful for your time, your heart, your energy,
Can
And
we end on one other thing though? I
we
got to
sure
tell you,
can.
the minute you talked about Dear Evan Hansen, I got to thinking about another Dear Evan Hansen song, and it's my third favorite song. I've ranked them, which is probably not good, but it
It's
is.
okay. Have your
It,
process. You can
it's
rank
okay,
them if you
right?
want. You can rank them if you want.
I did, darn it, I ranked them. But I love the one "You Will Be Found,"
Yeah.
where he has really now granted, if you know the Evan Hansen story, he doesn't really come to authentic Evan Hansen until the end of the show. But let's forget that the um, you will be found even when the dark comes crashing through, when you need a friend to carry you, when you're broken on the ground. You will be found if you let yourself put yourself out there, make yourself connectable. You will be found by someone who wants to connect. And I just encourage people, don't give up until you find that person. Just don't. Like, every person on the face of this planet, it has something to contribute. And the minute we think we're alone, and we lose hope and it's never getting better, the world just misses out. And talk about feeling your feelings, boy, that's a rush.
Yeah.
Whew.
See, we do feelings here.
Boy, oh boy. That's the second time I've said boy, oh boy, in this too. What in the world?
That's
I
because we're
see
connected
myself,
to our
and
feelings.
I really realize my sayings that I repeat regularly. But my gosh, I never want anyone to
Mm-mm.
forget that they were put on this earth with a unique design and purpose that no one else can live out. So when they choose to end it because of hopelessness or fear
Pain.
or just any of it, my gosh, the world misses out.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said about, when we find ourselves, we're looking for someone else to find us. And when we go, oh, there you are.
Mm-hmm.
There you are, sweetie. You got buried. You got lost under there. And then, like you said, then it's icing on the cake.
Mm-hmm.
The connections will come because you haven't abandoned yourself. You haven't pretzeled yourself. And so that song is so beautiful to capture that
Mm-hmm.
essence. And that's what I tell my girls when they were, preschool, or not preschool. They weren't riding the bus in preschool, but when they got first time they rode the bus and they went on that bus, I go, you matter. You're important. You're loved. You are enough. You are enough.
Mm-hmm.
That is the message I want every soul on the planet to internalize. And that's why we do this work.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, authentically, the driver. And so if there's nothing else anyone gets out of this today, is you do matter. And you are important. And so that's a great way to frame kind of our work today. Good. Thank you, dear Evan Hansen,
I know.
for the inspiration. If you haven't seen the show, that's okay. Listen to the two songs, Waving Through the Window, and You Have Been Found is the name of it. I
You will
know the
be
lyrics.
found. Yes.
Yeah.
And then my second favorite is Disappear. If you have not heard that one, he
Yeah.
talks about no one should ever not matter, right? It's
Yeah.
not okay for anyone to just fade away. So just listen to the soundtrack. It's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. And you might not love it, and that's okay too. You have your own
Exactly.
process. So I want to give all the permission slips everywhere. So thank you, everybody, for showing up and engaging with us. I saw your comments, and I'm very grateful for each of you. So thank you. You are seen. You are cared about. And please know that if you need help, reach out. There are supports in the community. Obviously, Pathways is here, but if you need other resources, don't hesitate to reach out to us. And on that note, thank you, Rachel, for showing up
Thank you.
and with your heart. Thanks, everybody.